Hey, what's up, guys? I'm kind of walking around as I talk about this because I feel like I'm falling asleep right now. I got that post-lunch haze. Probably do some exercises or something. Wake up. But I was watching Sheiky Baby's video. I'll post that video in the description. Good video. Asking questions regarding religion, specifically Christianity and things in the Old Testament and New Testament. Um, I was making a video earlier where I was like watching this video, pausing, making comments, but after a while, I kind of realized I didn't have any answers that were that interesting for most of his questions because because I don't really believe in the Old Testament. like, I think I think most of it's probably just allegorical or like metaphorical or something. Um, one of the funniest questions he asked was the first question, talking about is Adam and Eve just like a couple of white people, and how come all these races came from them, and also if it was just them, or even just Noah's family described the Great Flood, like when there'd be a bunch of inbreeding and a bunch of like genetic deformities and stuff. So I don't even think those stories are true. So that was pretty much my answer. Um, and if you think about evolution and stuff, there's a really stupid question. It's like an age-old freaking question. I'm about to grab a freaking sheet of paper here or something. Maybe I'll use the back of this. It's like a chicken and the egg kind of question, right? But if you know anything about evolution, you can deny evolution exists, that's fine, I guess, but I believe it does. I think we've observed that it does, specifically through archaeological evidence and carbon dating and stuff like this. And just mapping out genetics and stuff and seeing, like, there are people alive today that have, like, Neanderthal DNA, for example, and we can see, like, different subspecies of humans, like, interbreeded and stuff, and now we're Homo sapiens, blah, blah, blah. So you think about, like, that. So here's this bubble mailer. So there's a question of, like, what came first, chicken or the egg, right? But it's a stupid fucking question, because it's not like this great ontological fucking question of like, you got an egg, you got a damn you got a damn chicken. That's not even the reality. The reality situation is you have a bunch of freaking things, a bunch of chicken-like things already in existence that throughout time eventually become the chickens, that we know of today. Like, we're all coming, like, dude, all things in the universe existed forever. They existed first as a singularity, right? Infinitesimally small, yet infinitely massive, dense. Okay, it's everything, this kind of primordial, nearly paradoxical existence. And the Big Bang happens, and all this shit just explodes out into the universe, right? And then, stars form, and all this shit happens, and eventually down the line, planets form. There's certain chemicals and elements on that planet that then go on to support life, such as like single cell organisms. Eventually, these become multicellular organisms. Somewhere down the line, it becomes something close to what we call a chicken today. And then eventually they become the fucking chicken that is laying the eggs we eat. Okay? Same thing with humanity, right? So we're coming from we're coming from the Big Bang, same way. Eventually we become these sort of human-like creatures, right? and we're able to interbreed with these other these other human-like creatures, right? And eventually that becomes what we are today, which is like Homo sapiens. I don't even know why I'm drawing this now. It's kind of having fun. So there was no, in term, as far as we know anyway, with the science we know today, and from what we've observed, uh, there was no like Adam and Eve that just popped out of existence from nothing. There was this whole long, like trillion-year process or whatever that eventually became like humans. And at some point, we looked pretty similar to apes. We started losing our hair. All of a sudden we just got hair in our faces. Maybe even we got hair in our arms a little bit. We're not furry as hell. This is such a silly explanation. Yeah, the first things that we see as humans, I feel like I have to look that up real quick because I want to say it was something like 200,000 years ago we found, or not, we didn't find it 200,000 years ago, but we found a fossil basically around 200,000 years old that was basically a human-like being, a humanoid. And that is probably the oldest evidence we have of humanity. I feel like I need to look. Maybe I'm gonna look this up real quick. Fuck it. Right. So we're talking about straight up Homo sapiens. There was a fossil found in Morocco. All right, that's northern Africa, as you see. It was carbon dated back about 300,000 years ago. Yeah, African fossils date back from 300,000, 150,000 years ago. And we can go back and like trace our ancestry even back to this, what was it, Australopithecus or whatever. We call this fossil Lucy. And this is what I kind of mean by like human-like creatures. This was dated 3.2 million years ago. There are the remains. Right there. Bipedal hominid, yeah, hominid. I guess that's what we think they probably look like. So ugly bitch. Nah, I'm just playing. So there you go. That's pretty much why I don't believe the Adam and Eve story. Literally, I think it's more of an allegorical thing to explain kind of like, this concept of like original sin and men turning away, or humankind turning away from God or whatever. I'm not even sure. I understand that pretty much every Christian has this belief of original sin, that all humans, kind of because of Adam and Eve turning away from God, rebelling against God in the Garden of Eden, like because that happened, we all kind of bear this original sin. So even if we are perfect like Jesus, well, we're actually not, because there's original sin, and because of that sin, we're all gonna pretty much burn in hell unless we believe in Christ and are saved. I don't really buy that personally, and that's why I'm not a good Catholic. because if you talk to traditional kind of like conservative devout Catholics, they're gonna tell you that not only is everybody going to hell who's not saved essentially. Though saved is kind of a different term, I guess. That's more of a Protestant term. Catholics probably say those who don't believe in Jesus, who aren't like faithful, go to hell or something. But they'll even go further. And I don't know how they even explain this. I mean, Nick is always wondering about how to explain things biblically. I don't think Catholics can explain biblically, but they do. A lot of them believe this. I've met many that'll be like, yeah, if you're not specifically Catholic and you haven't gone through all the holy sacraments, baptism, communion, confirmation, either marriage or like, becoming a priest, and then like last rites, you're going to hell. I don't know how they're backing that up biblically. I don't think they are. I could be wrong, but I don't think they are. I think it's bullshit. I think a benevolent God, if God is benevolent, which I like to think God is, it just doesn't make sense to me that people are going to burn in hell just because, I don't know, they're like Muslim, or because maybe they were Christian, and I don't know, some traumatic events happened in their life and now they're not. It's not their fault. It just doesn't, I can't blame people. It's hard for me to blame people for this kind of thing. It's super interesting, dude. I'm gonna get on tangents now, but fuck it, who cares? I think it's still gonna be an interesting video, maybe. I didn't know until somewhat recently that in Judaism, hell doesn't even exist. There is no hell. Jews don't believe in hell. So when did hell come into being? That seems to be a Christian idea, which is weird. I think I have to believe in hell if I believe in heaven, as I kind of spoke before, because it seems like the opposite of everything this universe is, like, has to exist. It has to be this kind of like yin and yang, light and shadow, Satan and God, positive and negative kind of thing. So I think I would have to believe in hell if I believe in heaven. But yeah, I thought it was interesting that in Judaism, you either go to heaven or you just simply cease to exist. Which maybe in itself is a kind of hell, but I don't know. I feel like I've talked to a bunch of atheists who essentially believe that, yeah, if you die, you just cease to exist or whatever, at least in this like conscious form we're in now. And they're actually okay with it. It's like, they're like, yeah, why would I give a fuck? I'm dead. I'm no longer conscious. That's it. Game over. And there's even sects of like Buddhism, for instance, where that's kind of the end goal. Like, Buddhists, or at least some Buddhists, believe that we're kind of trapped in this endless cycle of reincarnation, and that existence itself is suffering, and having these kind of earthly desires leads to suffering and stuff like this. So if you can kind of break this cycle of reincarnation by, I guess, becoming a Buddha, becoming a person who is completely empty and pure, lacks any kind of desires, then you'll be free from reincarnation. I could be fucking this up. This is like what I think is going on, and what I've read, from what I've read about Buddhism, or at least some of Buddhism. There's all kinds of different Buddhist beliefs. But anyway, the end goal, I guess, is to become a Buddha, and then essentially cease to exist in terms of existence as we know it. You're just like not really conscious. You're just kind of in this blissful state of being, and kind of like, one with the universe. It's almost like you're going back to that singularity I was talking about with the whole Big Bang and shit like that. It's almost like you're going back to that kind of almost incomprehensible, seemingly paradoxical state of being. And That's their freaking goal. They want to essentially cease to exist, at least in terms of existence as we know it. So it's very odd but interesting that people seem to have different goals for what they want in the afterlife. Christians want to go to heaven, where they're feeling this like unfathomable happiness. There's no suffering in heaven. Um, some atheists, some Buddhists. I'm not sure if there's other religions they're probably related to this, but they seem to be totally fine with just blipping out. you know? uh, yeah, very weird. Anyway, what else? So you were talking about Old Testament shit, kind of went over that. Oh, I kind of commented on your video about this. You were asking about the Great Flood and the evil things that God did, right? Let me walk around again so I can kind of get my brain storming. I get the blood flowing. Got some allergies today, dude. Probably need to vacuum in here. I haven't done that in a minute. So, again, I don't take the Old Testament stories as literal. I think they're like allegorical or metaphorical, maybe. But even if the Great Flood is literal, and it seems like it may have happened somewhere in like the Middle East, like Mesopotamia or whatever. It seems like there was kind of this cataclysmic event. There's some archaeological evidence that points to that. But the thing is, it wasn't a worldwide event. It may have seemed like a worldwide event to the people at the time, because how could they be aware of like other civilizations that they're not connected with, that are like thousands of miles away? So when they're writing about, this cataclysmic, like near apocalyptic event, that's, from their point of view, that's what it seems like, but that's not the case, because they're just ignorant of the other civilizations and other geographical locations that they're not aware of, they're not connected to. So it could be the case it's kind of like Great Flood happened, killed a shit ton of people, but thousands of miles away, there's people just chilling, and they don't even know what's going on. They're going about their lives like normal. So there's that. You're asking a lot about, is God evil? By the definition of God that Nick and I were kind of using, that can't be the case, because we think of God as omnipotent, omniscient. Fuck else am I missing? Omnipotent, omniscient, all-knowing. Oh yeah, omnibenevolent. I'm losing my mind right now. Sorry for cussing so much. When I find it trouble sometimes to kind of keep like a straight line of thought. I think it's like an ADHD thing. Sometimes I get frustrated, start kind of like cussing, and it'll help me get back on track somehow. But anyway, yeah, you're asking about that, like why did God create Satan? Yada yada yada. I don't know, man. I really don't know. That's something I've thought a lot about. I think I don't know, this is probably not like an acceptable answer for you, but I think I've already kind of answered this in my last video. I'm talking about how nothing in existence exists in like a vacuum. I mean, literally we exist in a vacuum of space, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about happiness cannot exist in a vacuum. There has to be this kind of like scale of like happiness, suffering. That's kind of how sentience works, right? It's just kind of how consciousness works, as we like feel a range of emotions, a range of things we apply negative connotations to, things we apply positive connotations to. Obviously, happiness is positive, suffering is negative. But it's just our perception. Yeah, that's another thing I've thought about for a while. And you could even say, I know we provided kind of like biblical or religious definitions of suffering and evil before. But you could even go with like more of a secular definition if that's where you want to be. And think about just suffering and happiness being like our own personal experience and our opinion of that experience. Hell, there are people who are masochistic. So what is what is suffering really, other than just like the opinion of the individual? You know. I think this is like maybe a Buddhist kind of story or philosophical allegory or whatever you want to call it, but something to do with, you probably heard this before, I'm sure. If there was a tree that fell in the forest and there was nobody around to hear it, it doesn't make a sound. What that's kind of getting at is if there are no humans in the universe, or no sentient beings, let's say, in the universe, then what is good or evil? What is happiness or sadness or whatever emotion? It's like, I don't think those things even exist without humans or like sentient beings or whatever. It's just the universe is what it is. It's this kind of chaotic place, you know? We apply to the universe our own kind of ethical ideas, our own like opinions, our own feelings, but perhaps in the like metaphysical sense of reality, these things don't actually exist. They're all in here, you know? So that's something to think about too. Anyway, I know Nick is going to provide some good stuff coming from a very devoutly Christian point of view. So I'm going to stop my response there. Hopefully that'll get your brain storming about some things, thinking about some things. Hopefully that was interesting at least. Probably didn't answer all your questions, but it is what it is. Appreciate you, man. And I know at the end of the video you're like, you're not trying to offend anybody. You feel like, Nick and I are your friends. You don't want us to get offended. I'm not offended. I don't give a shit. You can believe whatever you want to believe. I don't think you're going to hell because of it, personally. And that's a heretical belief, but it's whatever, man. I'm definitely not offended. I enjoy talking about this stuff. And I appreciate it, man. Take it easy. And have a good one. Peace. Alright, shit, there was more thing I want to talk about, actually. Walk around the yard while I do it. This is, again, regarding, like, suffering. It kind of being, like, a perception of reality. Perhaps a false perception. Only false objectively, not false subjectively. People suffer. That's what they're feeling. But look at the big picture. It's like, is it really suffering? I don't know. So take into account a baby is born, right? If they're a healthy baby, typically they come out of the womb and they're crying, they're screaming, they're like immediately suffering, you know? Or take like you got like a toddler, falls down, scrapes his knee, you know? This toddler's only been alive for like 2 years or something, and up until this point, falling and scraping his knee bad is like the worst thing that's happened to him. And he's correct in that it is, but is it actually a big deal that you scrape your knee? No, obviously not. And I mean, I'm 33 years old. I can't even recall the first time I fell and like hurt myself. I have no even memory of that, you know? So, although that at the time that might have been like the biggest deal for me, and that was a huge amount of suffering in my mind, in reality it's like not really, you know? That was just how I felt at the time. Now that I've gained a larger scale of experience over my life, I realize shit like that's not a big deal. And I think
we have to humble ourselves to this idea of eternity. If we do believe in heaven, and heaven's a good place, then does it really matter that we suffered for, say, I don't know, a 80-something year lifespan? I think we'll probably look back, let's say we're in heaven for even like 1,000 years or something, you know? We're going to look back at our life on Earth, the 80 years or whatever we spent on Earth, where we suffered, and be like, man, that sucked. Like, screw God for this or whatever. And like, nah, man, we're not going to care. Because we're going to have that bigger picture, that bigger frame of reference to gauge the suffering, okay? And if we're talking about like an eternity, man, like a legit eternity, or even a million years, man, what is 100 years or 80 years or whatever your lifespan's gonna be? It's practically nothing. It's like a few minutes, you know, compared to like, if we were to scale it down to like our earthly lifetime, you know, 100 years to a million is like a minute or something. So, another thought for you, you know, it's like, again, go back to the idea of like the subjective experience of suffering. I'm not saying you're wrong that you believe you're suffering. I'm just saying, like, just how you feel right now, you know? And again, suffering is kind of like an opinion. Some guy could get, you know, kicked in the nuts, but that's like his fetish or something, you know? So it's like, it's very subjective. And perhaps, I don't know, in a way, not even like real, you know? Or I guess maybe it's not good to say it's not real, but at least I think you could say that it'll be kind of a joke. Kind of like how scraping my knee and that being a big deal is a fucking joke to me now. Literally scraped my knee climb the other day. Didn't even notice until I saw there was blood on my knee. You know, it's a fucking joke to me now. And I think perhaps our earthly lives will just be a big joke to us in our afterlives. That's how I feel anyway. Later.